because around the time that Tenenbaum said that, the philosopher Deleuze and Guattari were talking about the rhizomatic, where, quote, as a model for culture, the rhizome resists the organizational structure of the root tree system, which charts causality along chronological lines and looks for the original sources of things and looks towards the pinnacle or conclusion of these things. A rhizome, on the other hand, is characterized by ceaselessly established connections between semiotic chains, organizations of power, and the circumstances relative to the arts, sciences, and social struggles. The opposite of the rhizomatic is the tree-like or the arboretic. Many people in the 1990s saw the rhizomatic as the model for understanding the internet, where every obstacle is worked around and where any particular node of the system is destroyed, the rhizomatic system compensates and grows around it. In the past several years, we have seen the actual reversal of this. The internet is no longer a rhizomatic structure, but arboretic, something that can be cut down and hacked to bits and killed. This is happening on several fronts. One, a move to cloud computing data lockers, and the other through the application of brute force by political and juridical actors. Things are so out of hand that legislation was proposed in the USA where someone sitting in his mother's basement who shared a copy of a song by Michael Jackson could have gone to jail longer than the doctor who actually killed Michael Jackson. In terms of the economic juridical power acting in the interests of capital and proprietarianism, we see a move to cloud computing, where data is held in giant lockers in the electronic sky. You can access this data if you pay. Some data lockers allow you to access it if you don't pay, but the bandwidth is reduced, and even then they can be blown off the map by draconian copyright enforcers, such as the case with library.new. Library.new allowed people to download any of its 800,000 books for free, and it was eliminated by a consortium of textbook publishers who took them to court. Did other websites spring up to replace Library.new? Yes, but it wasn't fast. And while the replacement websites are larger and more powerful, they are increasingly precarious due to their size and complexity. If they get taken down, they could be gone for quite some time. And the point is, they can be taken down. And they can be taken down politically. The classic example of this was in Egypt, where the Mubarak regime wanted to disrupt the actions of protesters, so they literally shut down the internet. Did that stop the most tech-savvy among the protesters? No, they used satellite phones to get info in and out of Egypt, but it did prevent the vast majority of Egyptians from accessing information online. Mubarak figured that this would force the organizations into face-to-face type communications, which are slower and corruptible by spies. It didn't work out that way for him, but that's a different story. The point is, the online is now precarious. Governments regularly censor and seize internet access as they deem fit. And economic interests are busy acting to enclose the internet and subject it to vertical extraction. That is also another story, but it is also an obvious truth. From this we can conclude the online is precarious. The offline is resilient. In fact, the RIAA knows so. They've concluded that the largest share of uncompensated file distribution is through the offline, people sharing disks of music, thumb drives of music, even entire hard drives of music. They also realize that there is really nothing they can do about it. This method of file sharing is an old technique called sneakernet, where people would copy data to a drive. Back in the 1980s or 90s, it was on a floppy disk, and then walk it to a destination. If you get enough of these, you have a lot of data. This is where the personal portable library comes in. People collecting books onto drives and copying them for their friends. Instead of floppies, it's a terabyte drive, but this is still a reversalism, a kind of atavism to an earlier mode of data distribution, the sneakernet. However, the difference now is one of scale. If the average book in PDF form is about 5 megabytes, it would take about 5 floppy disks to hold one. A cheap terabyte drive can hold 200,000 PDFs if each is 5 megabytes in size. If the books are EPUB files and about 1 megabyte in size, then a 1 terabyte drive that you can get for $69 can hold about 1 million books. The Library of Congress has 35 million books. If they were all EPUB files, they would fit easily on a 40 terabyte array, which is about the size of a toaster oven. Such an array would cost about $4,000. I asked the librarians at the university where I teach how many books are in their library. They weren't sure, but they guessed about 500,000. If they were all EPUB files, I could fit them all on a single terabyte drive. If they were all PDF files, I could fit the entire library on a 3 terabyte drive, which I can walk down the corner and get for about $150. These kinds of personal portable libraries can, and they do exist. There are many forces and trends working against this. An early one was from Western Digital, who made a hard drive that would phone home the file names and types you were storing on it. This didn't go over very well. There are several recent strategies. One is a long-term vision of cloud computing replacing hard drive storage. Once everything is stored in the cloud, which is in effect just a giant data locker, you will have access as long as you pay. No pay, no storage, no files. On top of that, there is no guarantee that the company providing the storage isn't monitoring the use of the space and looking for copyrighted material. Also, the NSA is recording all traffic on the internet, yet another example of the precarity of the online. And given how the proprietarians have captured government officials through campaign contributions, it is not an extreme leap to speculate on future activations by the NSA that would benefit the proprietarians. Another strategy is based in hardware. An example is the Kindle. You can't just plug in a hard drive with a Kindle. Also, because it is cloud controlled, Amazon can simply delete titles off of one's Kindle. This happened ironically enough with the book 1984 and also with Animal Farm by George Orwell, where the books were deleted and tossed into a digital memory hole due to a kerfuffle with publishing rights. The books were later restored, but what this illustrates is the kind of power innate to cloud-controlled computers and tablets, and thus their precarity. So therefore, we can think that even with these threats, the personal portable library is still a very viable sub rosa system of distributing ebooks. There's an important part to this. This is in the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Article 27 says, 1. Everyone has the right freely to participate in the cultural life of the community, to enjoy the arts, and to share in scientific advancement and its benefits. 2. Everyone has the right to the protection of the moral and material interests resulting from any scientific, literary, or artistic production of which he is the author. These two seem to be in conflict with one another, but they're not. Part 2 is alienable. You can write a contract that abrogates your right to collect money on your work. This is well known, especially to musicians who have been repeatedly stiffed by the members of the RIAA. However, Part 1 is inalienable. No one can take that right away from you, and that means that everyone has a right to access knowledge, period. By making a personal portable library for yourselves and others, you are helping people become educated and informed. So how do you make a personal portable library? Download a book. Do it again. Meet others who do the same. Share the books. Another thing one can do is make a data field where one attaches a drive full of books to an open Wi-Fi system. Common consumer technology, and then leave it in a public space like a coffee shop or a student lounge. Don't think of this as piracy. Pirates are murderous, violent assholes who kill people. We are not pirates. Sharing knowledge is not piracy. It is sharing. And sharing is caring. It is an act of love. So, let Metatron protect us. Lord knows it seems that no one else will.